once you reach the quote unquote mountaintop of where you say you want to be, there's so much more work to be done, man. And
Mhm.
that's one thing that I talked about to David yesterday was he was like, "Hey, you feeling overwhelmed?" Or not me
Yeah.
specifically, but he's talking to the group. And I'm like, "Yes, I do." And this is the reason why, because once you feel like you got to a certain place, there's still more work to be done. It's like my dad used to always tell me this. Life is like peeling back an onion. Like
Mhm.
once you think you got one thing licked, there's another layer, and then
Yep.
there's another layer, and there's just more work to be done. And I'm finally starting to realize that like there's no such thing as a mountaintop because
No.
there's still more climbing to do.
Mm-mm. Because
Yeah.
even John Maxwell, like we call him the world-renowned speaker, right? In leadership. And he always talks about that. He says, the more I learn about what I don't know, the more I learn what I don't know. Like that I
Yes.
don't know anything. And so it's
Yes.
like you ain't gonna never get to where it's like we always think it's an end, but it's no
Yeah.
end. And that's what this wealth is, a journey. Because
Yes.
it's gonna be a journey because every life is cyclical. Like
Mhm.
you accomplish one thing and then you go through another cycle and that's
Yep.
it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is what brings me to my next question here, and it kind of all ties in. One of my favorite quotes is from Napoleon Hill, and I'm gonna trying to remember it. It's um, every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent benefit.
Mhm.
We all go through things in life, and it sucks while we're going through it. But if you have the right perspective, then you can go through that thing, overcome it, and it brings forth so many different blessings. Now, what I want to know from you is what you actually faced in life that actually bought you an equivalent benefit, if that makes sense. So what?
Yeah.
So your business now,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Was married in a 13-year relationship. We were dated for 6, married for 7. Um and probably cheated on me for 6 of the 7 years that we were married. And I tell people he probably cheated on me before then, but I ain't got the facts. But just that, right? Going through that ultimate betrayal of being cheated on, right? And, no one ever enters marriage with the thought of divorce, right? And especially coming from me, like growing up Pentecostal, saving myself. I was a virgin when I got with you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I did all the things the right way. And
yeah.
it's like, really, God, why me?
Hey, family! This is Che Willis coming back with another episode of Wealth is a Journey podcast. Guys, we moving and shaking out here. This is episode 69. 69 weeks of consistency, 69 weeks of putting out good content, just trying to get better and better every week. If you are new to this podcast, thank you so much for joining us. On this podcast, we talk about faith, family, and finances, among other things. If you are a return listener or a subscriber or watcher, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for coming back. Hopefully, we are adding value to your lives on the way to the M's. And we are on the way to the M's. So today, guys, we are in for a special treat, man. We have very, very special person to me personally. We have Brianna Latrice.
Hey,
This is my
hey,
folks.
hey, hey. How's it
Yes, this
going?
is my folks, man. She is a morning meetup member. We are going to get dig into her story a little bit and see how she can add value to your lives as well. But yeah, she's an awesome person, and you're going to get to learn a little bit more about her. But Brianna, before we get started, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little snippet, a little snapshot of who you are, and then we're gonna get into it.
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Brianna Latrice. I'm an affair recovery coach. I coach women who have been cheated on. And I feel like it's important to say because this will be important as we get into the story. But I am a divorcee. So a divorced single woman and yeah, entrepreneur, author, TEDx speaker. I'm learning to, what I'm saying, give myself all the accolades.
Yes, yes, we need that. Yes, yes. So Brianna, thank you so much again for being a guest on Wealth is a Journey podcast. All of the MMU members that join us on this podcast, I always ask them because it's a shameless plug. Because the morning meetup has changed my life
Yeah.
tremendously. Like I
Hmm.
can't even begin to talk about it. My question to you is, who was Brianna before MMU, and who was Brianna Latrice now? Yes.
Man. That is a good question. Let's see. Before MMU, I would say I was an aspiring entrepreneur, but I was lost. You know what I'm saying? I knew what I was called to do in the space of infidelity, but I didn't have like a clear vision of how to get there.
Hmm.
And that is what the morning meetup has helped me to do, is to really get clarity. And it brings me comfort to know that like even when David talked this morning, like being patient, it most of the time it's not an overnight success, and so it makes me feel be patient where I am, but also just the community, man. The people and the connections that we get to have, the accountability partners, the relationships that I've been able to cultivate, like you can't put a price on it. So you got the 500, I'd say go on ahead and invest in it.
Yes, yes. We out here. Dave Shantz. For those who don't know what the morning meetup is, it's hosted by David Shantz, who is a podcaster, entrepreneur, who is a coach also, and coaches entrepreneurs that are making, I think, what 250,000 or less, or whatever the case may be, to be better entrepreneurs. And it's awesome to see people like you, people like myself, other members
Yeah.
who are growing and ascending. Like you can see it,
Yeah.
like the confidence and things of that nature. Because before I started in the morning meetup, I wasn't a speaker at all. I didn't speak at all. I was kind of in the background in the shadows, just watching the show. And to for me to be where I am now doing podcasts and on episode 69 is a
Yeah.
testament of what you can get if you apply what you're learning. And I think that
Absolutely.
the application piece is huge. So
Hmm.
brings me to my next question. You were one of the people that hosted, not
Okay.
just
Yeah.
hosted, but actually taught on the morning meetup. And there's not a lot of us out there who were able to do that.
Yeah.
What was that like for you, and what did that unlock in you after you presented on the morning meetup?
Oh man. Woo. Okay. It's funny because it's like, why am I tearing up about this? So, I was co-hosting with Alistair. He's another MMU member. And so, uh, and Alistair like brings the heat
Yes.
all the time. And
Yes.
so, like, he went like the first week, and then he went the second week, and then he was like, "All right, sis, it's your turn." And I remember reading that text message like, what he tripping, So I made up an excuse. I was like, nah. But really what it was in my mind, like what I was telling myself was like, okay, I'm not ready. I'm not making a fraction of what a lot of the people in this MMU community is making. And I was just like, fear of judgment is my thing, right? And so I was like, I'm not ready to be judged because I'm sensitive about my stuff. And so so but I sat with it or whatever. And then that's why it's important to be a part of a community, right? Because the conviction that you get. So every day that I was showing up and hearing what Dave was talking about and what other members in the community were doing, I was convicted. And so I just text Alistair and was like, all right, man, I'm gonna go ahead and present, you know what I'm saying? And man, I think the reason why I'm kind of tearing up is because I just had surgery or whatever. So when my mom was here, I pulled up the recording of me speaking to y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
my mom has heard me speak several times because she always come into my engagements. But she was literally watching that and she was like, "Ooh, that's good. Ooh, wow. Ooh." And so, and then for her to get to see you guys like um give me feedback and just pour into me, it was just, man, it was so it was encouraging, and it's a reminder that we are our own worst enemies. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
just to see everybody in the community like, and what I love about this community is it's a balance.
Mhm.
It's not just always good feedback. And I always tell people like, I don't value people who only gonna tell me the good. I need the criticism too, because it allows me to value your feedback more because
Yep.
you're able to criticize me. And so it's just it really inspired me to get out there more.
Yeah. That was dope. And the thing for me was I don't know why we do this, but we sabotage ourselves, and you just spoke about it.
All
Like
the time.
the fear of judgment, like people are going to criticize you no matter what you do, good
Hmm.
or bad. So I want you to talk, just if you don't mind, just talk about why you think that we do that. Like why do we, what is that fear of judgment? Like because after you realize, like after you actually do the thing, you realize it really wasn't that bad, and like who
Yeah.
cares what they think anyway? But
Hmm.
can you talk about that a little bit?
Like, just why people have that fear of judgment.
Yeah, because
You
I
know,
do too. I do sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. But the reason I talk on the morning meetup so much is to kind of get those reps and just get out of my own way. And I don't
Mhm,
care anymore. Like I'm talking regardless.
mhm,
You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
But I face
Yeah.
that too.
I think that everybody's different, right? I think
Mhm.
that everybody kind of has like their core root of like where particular things stem from. Like, your fear of judgment might be different from my fear of judgment. But I think essentially, I think too, like, because you hit me up after I presented and you were like, "Hey, Brie, I'm a class clown too." And
Yes.
I think back in the day, it was a lot easier for us to just do because we didn't have a lot to compare it to, right?
Hmm.
And I think that it's a lot harder now for fear of judgment because we see other people in our spaces who appear to have it all together, right? And their intellect and the way they talk and their dialogue and their content. And so it's like, man, if I put my stuff out there and it's not at their caliber, then people are going to, judge me. And also because of that, like for us, when we were clowning in class, it was just our classmates. But now we know that when we put stuff out there, it's to the masses, right?
Yeah.
And people are hurtful. Like I'm learning that.
Yes.
Like I got a couple of posts going viral now, and in the comments that people are putting in there, I'm like, dang, wow. So I think there has to be some type of I know for me, right, it's always about acceptance. And that's how I cultivated like my goofy character was because, and you probably heard comedians say this, like I didn't have a lot growing up. And
Hmm.
so before those people would joke on me, I'd already had a joke. So it was
Yep.
like, okay, you want to talk about how dark I am? Bet I got that joke. Now come with something else, sis. Come with something else, bro. And so now when we're doing this in the business, it's like I don't have that quick comeback, right, to
Yeah.
defend myself. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Are you tired of living paycheck to paycheck? Are you tired of using your credit cards as an emergency fund? Are you tired of getting stressed out anytime you think about money? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, I'm here to help. My name is Che Willis, and I help families living paycheck to paycheck live the life that they want to live through budgeting and investing. And I understand the word budgeting may be scary. However, we're trying to take the fear out of that word. All we're doing is telling our money where to go, as well as reducing our expenses and taking that money, marching it into the marketplace, and making us some money babies. That's all we're doing. So if you need help, please go to wealthisajourney.com. Again, wealthisajourney.com. There are free resources on there for budgeting tools. There are digital products on there to help you on your investing journey. and there's one-on-one coaching. So if you need help, go to wealthisajourney.com today. I look forward to seeing you soon. Yeah. Nah, that's good. And I think you had mentioned it before, like the overnight success piece. And
Mhm.
let me just put this out there to everybody who's listening or watching. There is no such thing as an overnight success at all.
Nope.
It takes years to get where you want to be. And after you get there, there's still more work to be done.
Mhm.
And I think that's one thing that we need to just get out of the way. There's no such thing as an overnight success. So if you're seeing somebody on social media or you're watching somebody, on YouTube or whatever the case may be, just understand the work that it took for them to get to where they are.
Yeah.
Like, I'm documenting the work that it's taking me to get to 69 episodes.
Mhm.
Like, you saw how bad it was in the beginning, or you saw how bad you were at speaking when you first started. But look at you now. You're here now.
Yeah.
You're a TEDx speaker. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And you know what? It's like even going back to that because I've been having this conversation a lot and I had this conversation yesterday. And it's not like me being arrogant or nothing. And I told my cousin this yesterday. I was like, it's not me being arrogant. It's just God's purpose for my life. Like anytime I apply for stuff, I win. And there's so many things that I haven't applied for because of that fear. But it's crazy, right? Because it's like I got all this data of facts that when I do apply, I get the thing that I apply for, but there's still, you know what I'm saying? It's this thing. And I did a TEDx talk over imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm.
And I came up with this acronym called SURE, SURE, and it stands for self unbelief rooted energy. Because if your energy is rooted in unbelief, it's always going to reflect in yourself, right? And so I like what you say you do in the morning meetup is we have to work that fear muscle of like, man,
Mhm.
I'm afraid of judgment, but it's okay. I'm gonna speak every single day because what happens is that, like what David talked about this morning, you're becoming that person, and we
Yes.
become that person by working that muscle bit by bit every single day.
Yes. Yeah. We got to continue to work, man. And that's one thing that I talked about it a minute ago. Like, once you reach the quote unquote mountaintop of where you say you want to be, there's so much more work to be done, man. And
Mhm.
that's one thing that I talked about to David yesterday was he was like, "Hey, you feeling overwhelmed?" Or not me
Yeah.
specifically, but he's talking to the group. And I'm like, "Yes, I do." And this is the reason why, because once you feel like you got to a certain place, there's still more work to be done. It's like my dad used to always tell me this. Life is like peeling back an onion. Like,
Mhm.
once you think you got one thing licked, there's another layer, and then
Yep.
there's another layer, and there's just more work to be done. And I'm finally starting to realize that, like, there's no such thing as a mountaintop because
No.
there's still more climbing to do.
Because
Yeah.
even John Maxwell, like we call him the world-renowned speaker, right? In leadership. And he always talks about that. He says, the more I learn about what I don't know, the more I learn what I don't know. Like that I
Yes.
don't know anything. And so it's
Yes.
like you ain't gonna never get to where it's like we always think it's an end, but it's no
Yeah.
end. And that's what this wealth is a journey. Cause it's
Yes.
it's gonna be a journey because every life is cyclical. Like
Mhm.
you accomplish one thing and then you go through another cycle and that's
Yep.
it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is what brings me to my next question here, and it kind of all ties in. One of my favorite quotes is from Napoleon Hill, and I'm gonna trying to remember it. It's um, every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent benefit.
Mhm.
We all go through things in life, and it sucks while we're going through it. But if you have the right perspective, then you can go through that thing, overcome it, and it brings forth so many different blessings. Now, what I want to know from you is what you actually faced in life that actually bought you an equivalent benefit, if that makes sense. So what?
Yeah.
So your business now,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um was married in a 13-year relationship. We were dated for 6, married for 7. Um and probably cheated on me for 6 of the 7 years that we were married. And I tell people you probably cheated on me before then, but I ain't got the facts. But just that, right? Going through that ultimate betrayal of being cheated on, right? And, no one ever enters marriage with the thought of divorce, right? And especially coming from me, like growing up Pentecostal, saving myself. I was a virgin when I got with you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I did all the things the right way. And
Yeah.
it's like, really, God, why me? And so I went through a really dark space, like depression. I had lost myself completely. And maybe we'll even talk about that too. Like I remember the first time that I left my ex-husband now, I had $10 to my name, and that's it. $10. And that was because we were separated at the time and we were living in two different households, but I was helping him pay his bills as well as mine. And yet he was taking his check and spending it on other women. And so I was just empty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so man, I'm grateful for that experience though, because it's what has birthed life after infidelity.
Wow. So one thing that I learned about business as I'm on my journey is that if you have a product or service and you are the face of it and you've gone through the thing that you're helping other people get over, it makes for a better story for them to kind of gravitate to you.
Mhm.
So how did you kind of come up with this business as an affair recovery coach? Like
Yeah.
how did you turn it into a business?
Yeah. So, like most entrepreneurs, I think we always start off doing one business and then it ends up taking us to the right business that we're supposed to be doing.
Sure.
Because when I did my TEDx talk over imposter syndrome, I started a business about that, like speaking to people about imposter syndrome and stuff. And then what happened was listening to David's podcast, one of the life coaches was on there. And I was like, I think I'm gonna join her course and go do the life coaching. And so through her life coaching program, I remember asking her a question. I was like, hey, I'm battling between keeping my imposter syndrome, people already know me in this space, or having to start over with this affair recovery idea. Because it was just an idea at that time. And she was like, oh, it sounds like you already know what you're supposed to do, And that hit me like I was like, okay. So check this out at the time, I only had 70 followers on IG, right?
Hmm.
So I go on IG and I tell my story of me being married and cheated on and blah, blah, blah. Within 30 minutes, Shay, I had 1,500 views on that post. And I only had 70 followers at the time. And
Wow.
so people started reaching out to me in my DMs and they was like, oh my gosh. First of all, they didn't even know I was ever married. But then they were like, I'm going through the same thing. How did you get through it? And asking me all of these questions. And then I was like, all right, God, I hear you. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I just closed down the imposter syndrome stuff and started this journey of life after infidelity because from that post, what I learned was that people are hurting
Hmm.
and that I have been through the healing myself and I don't have no shame attached to any part of my story.
Hmm.
And that was what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's good. And I think imposter syndrome kind of ties into it as well because it kind of goes into self-worth
Hmm.
and it'll help you to be able to leave that situation if you're in it. I
Yeah.
I believe.
Hmm.
So it kind of ties in, even though you kind of left that situation or that business, it still
Yeah.
all ties in.
Yeah. I actually still use the short formula in this business now. So yeah, I love how I can tie, like you said, tie it all together.
Yeah. So what and if you don't mind talking about it, just let me know. That's fine. What was the thing that kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for you to say, "Hey, I'm out of here. I'm done."
Yeah. So a little bit of my story. Like the first time I found out that my ex was cheating on me, I had to make myself stop looking after woman six. I went to stay with a couple of friends and then came back 2 days later. And then I broke into because first time I broke into his tablet. Then when I came back, he was at work and then I got into his laptop. So within a 2-day time span, I had already found out about 10 plus women, right? But I still stayed.
Yeah.
And then that was 2015. So for the next 5 years, every 6 months, somebody else would approach me. Um, his girlfriend, we were still married now since 2018. His girlfriend approached me at the gym, told me they had been in a relationship for 2 years. I still stayed, right? But here's what happened. 2020, we already know the world shut down. And I was like, man, I had been wanting to get locks for a while, right? And
Hmm.
so I was like, man, I'm gonna get some locks. So when the world opened back up, I went to a loctician and I said, hey, my hair is falling out in the middle. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, middle stress, I already know what that means.
Sure.
And she was like, okay, well, let me connect you to a hair doctor, a trichologist, and we'll see why your hair is falling out. So I go to this lady or whatever, and she's like, I'm gonna put your body on this scanner and it's gonna tell me everything that I need to know as to why your hair is falling out. And I was like, okay, great. So she puts me on the scanner, and then probably like 10, 15 minute scan. And then she a black woman, so she just started cussing. She was like, oh shoot. Because when the scanner went off, all I saw was these red dots over the silhouette of a body.
Hmm.
So she's cussing, and I'm looking at the computer screen like, oh Lord, she's gonna tell me I got a terminal illness. I got 3 days to live. I'm like, no, just the worst, right?
Yeah.
She sits back in her chair, and it felt like 5 minutes, but it was probably like 10, 15 seconds. And then she finally said, what's wrong with your broken heart? And when I tell you, Che, like tears started coming down my eyes, but then I was stopping them. And she was like, no, 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 that's your problem. And it was so refreshing
Hmm.
because that was the first time that anybody had ever seen my hurt, because I
Yeah.
had masked it in performing well. I had masked it in keeping everybody happy by telling jokes, right? And nobody really knew how deeply hurt and broken I was. And she told me, she said, you're completely healthy. She was like, everything on your scan shows me that you're completely healthy. She said, the only thing that's wrong with you and why your hair is going to continue to fall out is because you have a severely broken heart. And she said, you have a choice. She said, you can either stay in this marriage and let it kill you slowly. And that's a hard thing to do. She said, or you can leave this marriage, which is also a hard thing to do, and continue to live and be a daughter to your mother, be a godmother to your godchildren, be a cousin to you. And she went down the list.
Hmm.
And that was a Wednesday. My ex-husband's grandma had passed away. I went to the funeral on a Friday. I hugged him as tight as I could after that funeral, and I have never turned back.
Wow. That's man, you went to the doctor for one thing, and then you got a coaching session. That
Whole
was the
coaching session.
that was a thing to help you leave. So my,
Mhm.
my question is like in the people that you coach and you help, what are some of the things that make people stay in a situation like that?
Yeah. Um, It's always like, we hear this, right? Where we talk about it's always something that's connected to childhood. So there's always a root cause. And so my job is to help them discover what that root cause is. So for example, what I discovered was that my root cause was rejection. I had daddy issues. My daddy wasn't in my life. And a funny story, I have a podcast episode called I Married My Father, because once I left my ex-husband for good, I met my daddy for the very first time. And my daddy is the spitting image of my ex-husband, from appearance to how he shows up in his relationship with his woman, because he can't stay faithful. Lord bless this man. But it was crazy, right?
Yeah.
But I stayed in this marriage because I didn't want to be rejected by another man who I deeply loved, because my father left me and didn't come back for me. And so a lot of people think that if they love a person harder in a relationship, that that person will then hopefully turn around and reciprocate that love, and it's not. I had another client, she had an unhealthy relationship with her father, right? He was abusive. So that's how she thought love was supposed to be. So she was going on her second divorce due to infidelity, because she always thought that's what love was supposed to look like. I had another client who she had lost a lot. She had always been heavy set growing up. And so when she got in her early 20s, she lost a lot of weight. And then she got with her husband. So she stayed with him longer than she should have because that was the first time anybody had ever showed her any attention. And so in the past, people had always joked on her weight and told her that she wasn't attractive and stuff like that. And so her husband would emotionally abuse her and say, well, ain't nobody else gonna want you, blah, blah, blah. I'm not. So it's always a root issue that sticks with us in our subconscious.
Mhm.
And we don't realize that that's actually what's operating how we show up in relationships.
Wow, that's a bar, man. I don't know if guys can have this too, but I had daddy issues too, man. My dad, my dad was he did his thing or whatever the case may be, and as I
Yeah.
was coming up, I was doing my thing, and then I'm like, yo, if I want to stay married or if I want to be married, I cannot operate the way he did,
Yeah.
even when he was married too to my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And so it definitely like it takes a decision
Mm-hmm.
to stop those behaviors if you want
Yeah.
to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like there's this narrative now going around where everybody just blames why they are the way they are because of trauma.
Yeah.
But you have, like you said, but you have a decision to say,
Yes.
hey, this was my story, but I can choose to turn that around. You know what I'm saying?
Facts. Facts. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can blame people and our parents and our circumstances and our environment. We can blame a lot of those things, and some of those things may be true, but you still have a decision to make.
Yeah.
Like
You got a
you can change.
choice.
Yeah, you can change. You don't have to be this way.
Mm.
But a lot of people need people like yourself and people that we see on the morning meetup and things like
Yeah.
that made a different decision. Like we all grew up in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to make that decision to change our
Right.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and shout out to you for leaving. And
Mm-hmm.
I see the glow up because no, I'm dead serious, man, and
Yeah.
I love it because when we first talked there were conversations of how am I going to make this happen? This doesn't match up with this. And
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to do this? And the next thing I know, I'm seeing the trajectory. I'm seeing the growth in your journey,
Yeah.
um, doing different conferences and I think it all goes back to you started.
Yeah.
Like you made a decision and you started, and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't maybe not knew how it was going to work out, but you started, and
Mm-hmm.
and look at you now doing
Mm-hmm.
conferences. You're an author. You
Yes.
were like, come on, let's talk about that, Brie. Come on now, come on, come on.
Oh man. Okay. So this what I've been pondering on for a while, right? Um, in the Bible when it talks about Job and the devil, like God tells the devil, he's like, well, have you considered my servant Job? And the devil's like, no, I'm not gonna touch Job. You know what I'm saying? He's devoted to you, you know what I'm saying? Like that's your guy, like in your
Hmm.
words, right?
Hmm.
And God was like, you can have him, just don't kill him, right?
Hmm.
And so, we know the story. He takes everything from Job. And even Job's wife goes to him and is like, why are you still believing in this God? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, right now, where I'm at is like, I'm still not where I want to be,
Hmm.
but I remind myself, thank you, God, for considering me as Job, right? So it's like, man, when I went through the trying times in my marriage, thank you for saying, have you considered my servant, Brianna? When I was at the brokest that I've ever been, thank you, God, for considering your servant, Brianna, right?
Hmm.
Like all of these things I understand now serve a purpose. So when I am doubting myself, I have to remind myself, thank you, God, for considering your servant, Brianna. Like, I'm going to push through this because I know, and like you said, we're documenting all of this because
Hmm.
when we do get to the end of that story, right, and we know what happened with Job, he got everything, but he got it back double. right? And so here's the thing, I thank you because I am working to get to my double. And even when Job was on his sick bed, like he never doubted, he continued to trust. And so that's what this journey is looking like for me, is that I'm gonna do it scared because I'm trusting you within it, right? Because even
Yes.
if it's a no, not right now, I understand that it's just going to be a time until you get me to that double reward. And so I'm in the
Ooh.
space of like, thank you for considering your servant, Brianna. And
Brie,
if
you
you
cook.
have that mindset, you're going to, you know what I'm saying? You're going to overcome your fear and just do.
Yes. Yeah, Bree, you cooking right now. And hopefully everybody sees exactly why she's on this Wealth is a Journey podcast, man. And you said so many things, and I'm trying to catch up. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna talk about that. No, 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 and I'm gonna talk about. So it's like the fact that you made a decision. Like you could have stayed down, you could have stayed broke, you could have stayed in
Mm-hmm.
your situation and fearing and doubting. Oh, well, he doesn't want me, so why would anybody else want me? But you turn that uh that adversity into the seed of an equivalent benefit. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're benefiting others because you went through this. Now
Yeah.
you're now benefiting others and helping them to get
Mm-hmm.
over the fear and the shame of being cheated on, man. And that's
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
You're killing it out here, man.
I think when we understand that our purpose is bigger than us,
Yeah.
it's easier for us to remove ourselves to the side because, like you, people gonna be out here broke and confused about their budget and their finances, especially with the way that the economy is now. And so when you understand that what you do is bigger, it's easier for you to put your fear on the backside because you know that the people who are called to you are waiting for you. And that's the same mindset that I have of like, man, there's women out here. And I get mad at myself when I don't execute because I'm like, I'm hurting me, the past
Yes.
me, right? Because if I didn't get with my life coach who helped me through it, but if she didn't put forth go past her fears of putting herself out there. So it's like I understand that what I have to do is bigger than me. And so it allows me to put my ego and all the fear of judgment to the wayside and just go get it.
Yes. Go get it. I love it. So what I want to know from you, Bree, is like the you started the business. What fears and what doubts did you have to overcome to actually walk through the process of actually doing the business? Because a lot of us, we allow those fears, we allow those doubts, that inner thing in our heads to say, nah, don't do that. Like what did you have to overcome to get on the other side and actually formulate this business and then do all the other things that come along with it, the book and all that?
Ooh, Lord, the fear of the unknown, because this was new territory for me. Um, I don't really come from a family of entrepreneurs. And I do have one aunt, and we laugh about her because she has done so many businesses and she's a good startup, but she doesn't know how to maintain them and they always fail. And so it was just fear of like, what is this going to look like? Right. And what are people going to say about me saying, oh, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm a
Yep.
business owner and stuff like that. So I just had to get over that fear, which is why I started to get into communities, right? With different people who have the entrepreneur mindset because I've growing up, I always said I don't want to be in business. I don't want to study business. I hate all things business. So the irony now of me having my own business is like it's mind blowing. It's crazy. But I didn't know even where to start. So I would say for me, it was just the fear of the unknown.
Yeah. But look at you now. Look
Yeah.
at you now, man.
Yeah.
Uh, so you have a podcast. If you wouldn't mind, if there's somebody who's not familiar with you, what are some things that they'll get from listening to and subscribing to your podcast?
Yeah. So my podcast is called Life After Infidelity, and it is stories of women and men who have actually experienced the betrayal of infidelity. And what you'll get from that podcast is that you can remove the shame that you too have experienced infidelity. I think so many people hide behind that, and that's why they don't come out and share what they're going through in their relationship or their marriage or whatever, because they're so embarrassed. But you'll see that through these stories, there are so many stories that resemble each other, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. And it may be hard right now, but you definitely can get through it.
Yeah, and I agree because you say it in your XYZ. Both decisions are going to be hard, but you got to
Mm-hmm.
just choose which
Mm-hmm.
one do you want to endure? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is great because it's helping get people over the fear of leaving,
Mm-hmm.
and then getting to living their best life. And you don't have to live this way.
Yeah.
Like you're God's child, you don't have to live this way. Like
Yeah.
you don't.
Yeah, and,
And
and and staying right, like, in the past, um, people always like, people promote leaving now, and now staying in a marriage after infidelity is the new shame. And so many people are shaming people for staying. And so that's why I say removing the shame of your decision to leave or stay, because I know people who have stayed in marriages and their marriages have flourished after infidelity. And so I think that we're in a culture now where they just shame everybody for every little thing. And so
yeah,
that's why I'm big on that word shame, because shoot, my story, I stayed for 5 years hoping things would change. And so just removing that shame of whatever decision it is, because it's going to be your decision, and you shouldn't be embarrassed about whatever decision your heart takes you in.
absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. My question to you is, can you tell us a story or just give us a little snippet of one of the people that you've worked with that you navigated them to stay in their marriage and how it flourished?
Ooh, yeah. So I'll say this. Um, the biggest thing with infidelity is that we ask the wrong questions, right? We typically ask questions like, well, what does she look like? How many times did y'all do it? Where did y'all meet up? Was she better in bed than me? And the question is, what do those questions really do besides um build up your insecurities, right?
Hmm.
And make you even angrier and hurt, right? It's like every time that you're asking all of these questions, it's like you death by a thousand knives, right?
Hmm.
And so that's the thing, is that people ask the wrong questions, because if you really want to determine if you can rebuild this relationship, you need to ask questions that are going to give you clarity on if this partner is a good candidate to rebuild trust with, and help you decide if you can actually work through it. So I actually have an ebook coming out, and it's called Essential Questions to Ask Your Partner After Infidelity. And what some of those questions look like are, what did it feel like for you coming home every single night that led to this infidelity? Um, how did you feel covering up the infidelity, and lying? What did that do to you? Um, what needs were I not meeting for you that made you feel like you had to go out and be with another partner? And a very important question, are you glad that the affair is over? Because some people, aren't glad. But when you ask like those type of questions, and I have over 20 different questions that are like on that level that you
Hmm.
can ask your partner, and it expands the conversation for you both to understand each other better. And then from there you can decide, hey, this is somebody that I can potentially rebuild trust with. And then from there I have a whole formula of what it takes to rebuild trust.
Let's go. Let's go. Uh, you as you were talking, something popped back up in my mind that you had mentioned earlier that I said that I wanted to kind of touch on. You said that when you left with, you said $75 or yes, it
Nope.
was
10.
$10. $10.
10.
10. So one of the things that I talk about with married couples is that the husband will say, "Hey, nah, my wife takes care of the finances," or the wife will say, "Hey, no, my husband takes care of the finances." But I say no, it's up to both of you to take care of the finances together. So if one of these people leaves or passes away because life happens, the other one is not stuck holding the bag like, what do I do now?
Mhm.
So how important is that for both couple, the both people in the relationship to handle the finances together. And if you wouldn't mind telling me, was that your situation, or did one handle the finances, or did both of you handle it together?
Yeah. So my marriage it was so blessed. I was paying all the bills. So it wasn't like
And hold, he was okay with that? That's
I was paying
crazy.
them.
That's wild.
Yeah,
Okay,
I know.
continue. I'm sorry. That's wild.
So that's why it's like I always have to bring people like you in, to speak to my audience because I'm learning even now as I'm working with clients. I'm like, oh my gosh, that wasn't my experience, because so
Mhm.
many people are like, I don't financially, I can't cover myself. I don't, or he covered all the bills, or he's the main soul of income and things like that. But when you were on my podcast, I love what you said about both both parties need to be involved in the planning, because if you do have to make the decision to leave, you need to know what the overhead is so that you can maintain that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so that wasn't my experience. Like I already knew what the overhead was because I actually was paying every single thing, but I coming from you in our podcast episode, that is now what I tell women is, hey, if you are not involved in the budgeting, I'm gonna need you next month or even tomorrow. Say, hey, babe, sit down with me. Show me what the budget is. And I said, and then from there, you can get an overhead so you can know what it is that you need to stash away so that you can actually leave and you don't leave with just $10 to your name.
For sure. And I think it's a household, right? So
Hmm.
everybody is involved in the decision making on what goes or how the household is run. So
Hmm.
one person shouldn't be the sole decision maker of what goes on financially in the two of you's household.
Right. Yep.
So the wife should have input, the husband should have input, and you come together and you agree that this is the way it's going to go.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
it shouldn't be one makes the decision, because it's going to it's a recipe for disaster.
Yep. Yeah. And I would say like if people are in relationships and y'all don't have that, y'all need to really set that up because like you said, it's a recipe for disaster. And like I think it's okay to still have separate accounts because I know couples say they have separate accounts
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But like you said, you need to know as far as for the household, the money that's coming in and the money that's coming out, even if he pays 60% and you pay 40, like that's all fine and gravy, but you still need to know what the overhead is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, that just popped in my head, and I wanted to make sure that I brought that up and kind of get your perspective on that.
Mhm. And
Now
I
Bree, you
think too,
go ahead.
I'll speak to this. So we were young,
Mhm.
like 20s, early 20s, mid 20s. And I did stuff too, Shay, like cuz I was good, like perfect credit, all of that stuff. So I had all of these credit cards and everything. And so then, because I'm in love and he's my husband now, I made him an authorized user on all of my credit cards. He maxed every single credit card out, every single credit card out. And so I say too, if you are in a relationship, you guys need to make sure that you have common goals or that your goals complement each other, because
Facts.
maybe one of you isn't good with budgeting, but you do have the goal of wanting to get financially free. And
Hmm.
so I think too, in relationships, we get in these relationships with people who our values are not complementary in
Hmm.
supporting each other's values, because that's one of the things that I've learned now, like looking back, like, man, I should have looked at things like that. Like, hey, how do you feel about credit and how do you feel about paying bills on time? Because he would say, hey, I'm a use this card and I'm gonna pay it off XYZ. And in my mind, I'm thinking, cool, you can pay it off because I'm paying all the bills. And so then that would fall on me. So I think too, it's important for you guys to make sure that you have the same goals.
Wow. Yes. And ladies, if your man has a job and you're paying all the bills, to me, this is just me, that's a red flag. So
Shay,
just
let me tell you something too. I'm gonna tell you something
no,
funny.
go, please go.
He made more money than me.
That's insane. That's insane, bro.
That's the crazy, ain't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's the crazy part. There's no
Wow.
reason why I should have been paying all the bills.
No, absolutely not. And yeah, ladies, you do not deserve that.
Yeah,
Now, if
huge
you
red
guys
flag.
agree that that's the way it's going to go, I'm cool with that.
Mhm.
But that's a red flag to me. I'm throwing a
Mhm.
flag. Throwing a red
Absolutely.
flag. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I want to know based off of what you just said, what was the conversation like when he maxed the credit cards out? Was it something that he did and then you found out, or did you get like a notification or something like that, and then you had the conversation like, yo, why'd you max this credit card out? Like, what was that conversation like? Because if my wife's an authorized user on my cards and vice versa, right? If I ran up the credit card, she would know about it, and vice versa. And
Mhm.
then we would have a conversation. But did you have a conversation with him after you found out he maxed out the credit cards?
Hmm. So, my ex-husband, I'm gonna say was because maybe he's changed, but he was a master manipulator. And so he would say things like, okay, let me give you an example. I had just paid off one of my Bank of America credit cards. And I think at the time I had like a $2,500 limit and I
Mhm.
had just paid it off. And so then we went looking for him a new car. He wanted a new car. The man wanted 2,000 down, right? And he was like, okay, we're going to use the credit card. And I was like, well, no, we just paid this credit card off, blah, 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 blah. I'm like trying to think, and he's like, I'm going to pay it off, before XYZ, because he knew I was big on like paying stuff off. And
Mhm.
that's how I would do, like, even with Best Buy credit card and my Firestone credit card. Like every time he would always reach out and say, hey, Bree, can I go get an Xbox on the Best Buy credit card? And I was like, well, no, because I just paid that down, blah, 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 blah. When do you get paid or something like that? And he was like, that's the thing. I'm gonna go ahead and get it now. And then when I get paid, I'll just pay the balance off. And, me being gullible and again afraid of rejection
Mhm.
because he was a master manipulator and I knew that if I said no that it's a potential that he wouldn't come home that night, so it was like a lot of abuse
Yeah.
that was connected to that.
Yep.
So yeah, so we would have those conversations and then he would just say, hey, I'm gonna pay it off, and then it would never get paid off, never. So
That's
again, that's why you have to gauge a person's character first when you
yeah.
dating somebody, but
Yeah.
then also making sure that y'all values are complementary of each other. Because I knew that from the beginning, right? Because even when we were dating, I was always having to give him money because he would be short for things and stuff like that. So why would I think that that would be different once we got married? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. But listen, you're young. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know. You're in love, and
Yep.
you're thinking that, hey, I'm going to be able to fix it. But hopefully there's somebody listening or watching this podcast that can identify what you went through.
Yeah.
So hopefully before they actually get married, they can at least have the conversation. I'm not saying leave, but
Mm-hmm.
have the conversation to see if the goals can start aligning if they don't
Yep.
now, and then
Yep.
they can have a happy relationship where communication is the main thing, and their goals align.
Yep. Yep. That's good.
Yeah, yeah. So you also
Well,
wrote a
I'm
book.
curious. I want to
Go ahead.
ask you, Shay, like,
Yeah, go.
um, when we talk about couples, like, because I know with you, when we worked on my budget or whatever, we just pulled up all the numbers, all the bills. So how do you like what's the best way for couples who are getting ready to become one to kind of merge, like plan for that? Like, how do you then start to merge your budgets and stuff together?
That's a great question. So I think having all the numbers, like all your income, and then they list all of your debts. But I wouldn't combine anything until you actually get married.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would not do that at all. And then it has to be a decision that you two come up with together that works for your household. So what works for my household may not work for the other person's household. So I think the agreement piece for your household has to be paramount. Like that has to be the deciding factor for everything. So for
Yeah.
me and my wife, um, her debts now became mine,
Mm.
and vice versa. So I didn't really have any when we combined our finances. Like for any new listener, my wife and I, we didn't combine our finances for the first 10 years of our marriage.
Oh, wow.
When we made the decision to do that, all of her debts became my debts. So now it was like, okay, well, we listed out everything. We listed out all the debts. We listed out our income. Now, how do we knock these down? And we knock them down smallest to largest. And that's how we would do it.
Okay.
So her student loans, like how do we knock these off? Okay, we put it in the budget. We make a line item every month, and then until it's knocked off. And that's how we're doing it. Every month we're budgeting. Wherever we're putting all of our expenses, putting all of our income, and that's how we're doing it. But the decision has to be made by the two of you in your
Mhm.
house how you're going to do it. But that's how we did it for our house.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
just that planning piece, being proactive, when you know that you're getting ready to get married and all that stuff. I think that would be helpful too, because I feel like that's the last thing that people think about when they
Yes.
get married, and
Yep.
really, it should probably be a conversation prior to, like, "Hey, what does your debt look like, and what's your goals for paying it off?" or something like that. I don't know.
No, no facts because truth be told, like we when I say we, as I'm talking about like black and brown people, excuse me,
Mhm.
we were not taught how to budget. A lot of us.
Yeah.
So we're coming into a marriage where a lot of us are keeping our stuff separate just because that's the way our parents did it, or we feel like that's the easiest thing. Like you do your thing, I'll do mine, and we'll figure it out. But
Mhm.
no, find out if our goals aligned, we should be able to come together, work together, and knock these things down together.
Yeah.
And then at that point, when we get good at it, then we have kids, and then we can teach our kids. And that's how we break the generational patterns.
Mhm.
Like that's how it stops. So we have to get over the fear of it's uncomfortable to have those conversations because my wife and I we had so many uncomfortable conversations when we did our budgets. So many.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
imagine.
Yes. It,
'Cause
it
I was
was it
gonna
was
say too,
bad.
like, when would you say is a good time to start having those conversations?
When you know you're going to get married. But like when you
Okay.
you know when this person's the one. Like I knew that my wife was the one. I'm like, yeah, she checks off all the boxes for me. And I know that this is the person that I want to be with. Now, where I went wrong is I let our finances stay separated, or not let, but I didn't have the conversation. I didn't have the tough conversation because this is the way my parents did it, and we'll just figure it out.
Okay.
But as I'm talking to other people and listening to different sermons and things of that nature, I'm realizing like, yo, this isn't right.
Mhm.
Like both of our goals align. We did know that. That's box number one checked off. Now, how do we combine our stuff where it makes sense, where it's a safe space for us to talk about the things that the challenges that we have financially? How can we bring it together and knock them down together? So once we did that, once we got over that fear that we talked about earlier, like we were like our trajectory was like through the roof, like it was gone.
Yeah.
Because again, we paid our house off in 7.5 years after moving in
That's
to the
crazy.
house.
That's
Seven
crazy.
and a half years while buying a pool, cash, boom. By getting a Tesla, boom, done. Like paying it. Like so like we don't think about the things that if we tackle the hard things and we do the difficult things, where it can actually take our lives. And then
Mhm.
not just our lives, but change the lives of others who are coming behind us.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why I scream to the mountaintops about the budget piece because that's the foundation of building wealth to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you can do that together, like you guys can do anything. Like I
Yeah.
feel like if you can public speak, you can do anything. So if
Yeah.
you can combine your finances with your spouse, you guys can do anything.
Mm.
And it's
I
not always
like
gonna be
that.
easy. Yeah, it's not always gonna be easy. Like that's a lie. If somebody tells you it's easy, it's not. Like sometimes me and my wife, we still have little disagreements.
Oh,
Oh yeah, Joe, it
no.
happens. It happens. We actually just had one the other day. I'm like, you know what? It's a couple $100 over what we had talked about. Is it worth the argument? Is it worth the going back and forth? Nah, not really. So just give in. Boom,
Okay.
done.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it you have to figure it out. Just like
Mhm.
life. Like
Mhm.
life is going to throw you curveballs all the time, but you have to figure it out. Like
Mhm.
what's the goal? And if the argument is not worth sacrificing the goal,
Mhm.
and just give in.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's good. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So thank you. I appreciate that. So Brie, you wrote a book.
Mhm.
Um, and I would like for you to talk about what are one or two things that people who purchase your book when, and I'll put all the description for everything that you have in the description. I'll put everything in there, how to follow you and all that. But what are two things that people would get from the book that you wrote?
Ooh, that healing is dictated on your time. That's one of the biggest things is that I think so many people think, okay, well, it was a year ago, 2 years ago, or 6 months ago that they should be at a certain space. And that's not how healing works. So, and that's how day one starts off with time doesn't dictate healing. Um, and then I think it really does give you tools to understand like if you're in a healthy relationship. Because day 49 ends with perfect love cast out fear. And so like even when I was just talking to you earlier about one of the reasons why I was so afraid to say no was because I knew that he would take something away from me, which would be his time. And I was always fearful of that. And so it really allows you to understand that A, you can heal on your own time and how to appropriately process that, the emotions, the anger, the betrayal, the shame, the sadness, the confusion. And you'll get clarity on that. But you'll also finish that book understanding, okay, is this somebody that I can rebuild trust with? Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go, Bree. My first of all, this has been a very, very good conversation. Very,
Thank you.
very
I've
good.
enjoyed it.
Absolutely, absolutely. My last question to you is, first of all, I'm super happy for you for the trajectory that you're on. Like I see
Thank
you,
you.
you out here moving. You
Thank
are out
you.
here moving. So guys, if you're not following Brianna, make sure you follow her because she's moving out here, which is super inspirational. My question to you is, where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? Your business, more books. Where do you see yourself?
Yes, in the next 3 to 5 years. Yes, publishing at least two more books. I actually have one book that's already finished, just gotta get it published and out there.
Hmm.
But then working on a third book. But I see myself, we talked about this today, starting the process of selling out arenas. So starting to host conferences. I want to host conferences centered around infidelity, but I also want to host conferences, mother-daughter conferences, to start that healing process between the mother and the daughter. And so traveling the world, man, and really inspiring other women through, and my mission is to inspire them through the gift of laughter, motivation, and scripture. So in 3 to 5 years, like Briaina Latrice is going to be a household name
Yes.
on, nationally syndicated talk shows, really talking about how to navigate infidelity. So I think I'm going to be the world's number one expert in the infidelity space. That's what we're going
Let's
with right there.
let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Hey man, again from the first conversation that we had when we got your budget together to where you are now, man, it is a joy to watch.
Yeah.
So I'm not a woman, but I'm
Hmm.
inspired by no, I'm dead serious, man.
Thank you.
I love the underdog or the person who people would look at like, nah, they're not going to do it, or you feel like that inside because of
Hmm.
the things that you've gone through, and to see where you are now doing conferences and getting flued out to be a part of conferences, that is super dope, man. And I'm happy for you, and I cannot wait to see you continue to ascend. And don't forget about the little people, okay?
No.
Don't forget about the little people when you know what I mean. Don't do
Hey,
that.
we all elevating together, baby. Like that's the
Yes.
thing. We're all elevating together. I would say too, like when we talk about wealth is a journey, what I would say to people is don't be afraid to make a decision. Because even if that decision is the wrong decision, it can get you to the right decision. Like I
Yes.
talked about, I started off doing imposter syndrome, but because I never stopped moving, right? And that's what we talk about. An object at rest stays at rest, but an object in motion stays in motion. So sometimes we get stuck contemplating, is this the right decision or not? Just make a decision, because in that movement, God is going to honor the fact that you have enough faith to move, right? And we talk about the man with the talents, with the 5 and the 2, and he blessed the ones who actually went out and did the work, and cursed the one who went and buried it out of fear of not knowing what to do. And so I would say that wherever you are in your space of confusion, make a decision, and God's going to honor that, and he's going to help multiply
Let's go. Where you cooking? You are
it.
cooking right now, but it's so true, man. And I talk about it all the time on this podcast, is that we just gotta move. We gotta go.
Mhm.
We just gotta start. We put one foot in front of the other and just move. And then there's gonna be a lot of fear, there's gonna be a lot of doubt, but you sitting there and not doing anything, you're not getting a result. Like the result's
Yeah.
bad. But however, if you move, you'll see, okay, well, maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe I want to try it this way.
Mhm.
You'll give yourself options
Yeah. Yeah.
to be wealthy, to be known, to help people, all the things. You're just giving
Mhm.
yourself more and more options.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. This was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you
This
for
is
having me. I was so I was like, "Oh, wait, I get to come on. Welcome to
come on
Journey."
now.
I feel
Come
so
on.
honored.
No, but people think that you just appear at this wealthy place.
Mhm.
Like for me, I graduated in 2001 from Chain University.
Okay.
And so for me, I feel like I'm a 23-year overnight success
Mhm.
because it took 23 years for me to get here.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
it may appear to people like, oh, this guy just showed up. This guy paid his house off and he's sitting
Mhm.
in nice, comfortable theater chairs. And all. No, no,
Mhm.
no.
Mhm.
It doesn't. No, it
Mhm.
doesn't work like that. You got
Yeah.
to work.
Yeah. And I think that's good for you to say, because sometimes I know I do, and I know people do too. Like we get caught up in that. But like you said, you're a 23-year overnight success. And I just started my business in 2022. So it's like don't I shouldn't put myself down because I'm not where you are, when you have 21 years in the game ahead of me. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And so it's like being okay with the lane that I'm in, and trusting that as long as I'm moving, I'm gonna get to where you are.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely, absolutely. But again, we got to move.
Yeah.
We got to move.
Yeah.
We can't just sit there and be like, oh, look at him or look at her. Oh, good for them. No, let's move because there's
Mhm.
people out here that you can inspire.
Yeah.
And not just people outside of your house, but the people inside of your house or your sphere of influence, like your family members, your nieces, your nephews, parents, all the
Mhm.
things. Like before you motivate other people outside of your household, motivate the people inside of your household first.
Yep.
And then you can venture out into the world. And that's kind of what I did as far as wealth as a journey. Like I
Okay.
started, with the budgeting piece and talking about investing and all that stuff with my family first. And then once I was done with them, I'm like, all right, cool. Everybody's gonna get it.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Yeah.
gonna hear about this. Like, because it's not just for the people that you see on TV.
Mhm.
Wealth is for everybody. But
Mhm.
again, it's a journey.
Mhm.
It's a journey. So
Mhm.
Brianna
Mhm.
Latrice, man, thank you so much for being on Wealth is a Journey podcast. And hopefully everybody enjoyed this conversation as much as Brianna and I enjoyed having the conversation. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will see you next week.
Thank
Wealth
you.
is a journey. Let's go.
Bye.